Making headlines this hour. President Dr. Muiz announces plans for strategic overhaul of national housing programs, pledging to expand eligibility for land and flat ownership. President Dr. Mohamed Muiz announces that the Japanese government agrees to provide a grant aid for the construction of the state-of-the-art fish market in the capital Male city. And Dr. Maria Maria asserts that the Maldives can develop a modern, internationally competitive agricultural system even with the unique constraints of the small island.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to PSM News in English with me, Hafiz Abdul Sattar. Now the news in detail. President Dr. Mohamed Muiz assures that eligible citizens who applied for but did not receive flats under the HERE housing scheme will receive flats under the current government's social housing programs.
The president made the remarks while addressing the residents of Henver Ward on Male City at a community meeting held on Sunday. The president said those who previously missed out on the HERE flats only need to reapply, noting that no additional documents will be required. Flats will be arranged for them under the 7,500 housing units being developed through new housing initiatives under Bank of Maldives financing and an Indian line of credit and other mechanisms. President Muiz said the distribution will be carried out in phases rather than all at once, as it is not realistic to construct all the housing units under a single project. Speaking on the Hulu Phase 3 land reclamation project, the president said the work is ongoing and is expected to reach completion by the end of this month. Meanwhile, land allocation and registration are planned for January next year. He noted that land use plans are being finalized and assured that land plots previously allocated will not be taken back. The president also announced that the dredging of Girawar Falu will begin once the Hulu Phase 3 project is complete. He stated that the work can be completed within 3 months by utilizing 2 dredges for the purpose. He added land will be handed over to beneficiaries once dredging is completed. The president further stated that the funds have been earmarked for the installation of utility services for the newly reclaimed areas in the next year's budget.
President Dr. Mohamed Muiz announces that his government will introduce legislative amendments in the forthcoming parliamentary session to permit citizens to access their pension funds under defined circumstances.
Speaking to the residents of the Henver district, the president acknowledged public frustration with existing restrictions and confirmed that reforms are being drafted to expand access. The initiative fulfills a central campaign pledge to broaden the utility of the pension system. The amendments would establish statutory provisions outlining the specific conditions under which individuals may draw upon their savings, offering greater flexibility than the current framework allows. The pension system created under the 2008 Constitution consists of the Maldives Retirement Pension Scheme and the Old Age Basic Pension Scheme. Access to the former is generally restricted until the age of 65, a limitation that has provoked sustained public debate. The government's pursuit of structural adjustments reflects its effort to address these concerns. The administration also faces the growing fiscal strain imposed by the pension system, with costs rising annually. Previous governments struggled to implement effective measures to ease their pressures. President Muiz has pledged to enact special measures aimed at correcting systemic inefficiencies and resolving the persistent challenges embedded in the current model.
President Dr. Mohamed Muiz announces plans for a strategic overhaul of national housing programs, pledging to expand eligibility for land and flat ownership in response to persistent shortages that have long excluded families from home ownership.
Speaking to the residents of Henver district in Male City, President Muiz confirmed that land reclamation projects near the capital are being accelerated to meet demand. The initiative, he said, is intended to confront the chronic housing constraints that have defined urban life for decades. Central to his remarks was pledged to revise the regulatory framework for land allocation in Male. He indicated that his administration is actively considering reduction or complete abolition of the current 5-year residency requirement. The change, he argued, would ease burdens on applicants and extend access to citizens previously disqualified by rigid stipulations. Government officials highlighted flaws in early allocation processes, noting that applicants often struggle with unclear eligibility metrics. The administration of President Muiz has introduced new guidelines to address ambiguities that undermined prior schemes, particularly in the calculation of residency periods. Officials said the reforms are intended to resolve long-standing grievances, including cases in which uninterrupted residency requirements fail to account for legitimate interruptions in tenancy.
President Dr. Mohamed Muiz announces plans to restructure the Judicial Service Commission, a move he said would secure the judiciary's independence and dismantle entrenched practices of political interference.
Speaking to residents of the Himwer district in Mala City, President Muiz underscored his commitment to non-interference in the justice sector, declaring that his administration rejects political vindictiveness and its intent on ending the influence of external actors on court proceedings. He insisted that neither he nor any government official has directed judges to detain political figures. As evidence of judicial autonomy, he pointed to a strict enforcement of drug-related offences, noting that courts are now being operated without the climate of fear that previously constrained the administration of justice. President Muiz confirmed that legislative amendments will be introduced to alter the Commission's composition, stressing that the public must be able to witness the judiciary functioning freely in its true sense. He described the initiative as the fulfillment of a central campaign pledge concerning the body's makeup. The administration is also pursuing broader support measures for the 10-member commission and the wider legal sector, including a specialized sector budget in the coming year to address systematic challenges, alongside recent pay harmonization efforts that have improved compensation for judicial staff.
President Dr. Mohamed Muiz announces plans to expand parking infrastructure in the Mala region, financed through the Indian line of credit. He confirmed that the necessary documentation has already been submitted to the Indian government. The initiative envisions 2 facilities in Male with additional structures in Vilimale and Hulumale. President Muiz said the Vilimale site will be located near the bridge landing point to manage traffic flow, while the Hulumale facility is being selected for its accessibility to the public. The President stressed that his administration is working directly with the traffic police and the public to address congestion. He noted that the new system, allowing traffic fines to be paid in installments, has already been taken up by about 1,000 individuals through formal agreements. Beyond parking, the government has secured a grant aid from China to upgrade Male's road network. The design phase is underway, but preliminary work has already begun to accelerate progress. Particular focus is being directed to the Male Market Precinct, where road upgrades are scheduled for completion by the end of Ramadan. President Muiz said the improvements are expected to ease congestion significantly in the area. President Dr. Mohamed Muiz announces that the Japanese government agrees to provide a grant aid for the construction of a state-of-the-art fish market in the capital, Male City.
During a community meeting with residents of Himwer Ward, the President revealed that the project initially launched during his tenure as mayor of Mala City had been stalled due to various challenges. He revealed, however, Japan has now stepped in to support in the initiative, with the technical team expected to arrive soon to commence work. The new market will be developed as a mixed-use facility, integrating a modern fish market and vegetable market on the site of the existing local market. Additionally, plans include a dedicated office building to accommodate fishing industry companies and associations, streamlining operations under one roof. He emphasized that the original plan, dating back to former President Maumoon Abdul Gayoom's administration, will be followed, ensuring the market is built on the previously designed reclaimed land. To facilitate the permanent development, the government has allocated temporary spaces for local market, travelers market and dried fish market. Once these interim facilities are operational, the 7th-floor modern fish market will be constructed, addressing long-standing space constraints.
Maldivian and the national carrier delivers 3.8 tons of essential goods to Sri Lanka under a relief initiative led by the Mahaldeep Foundation. Partnering with Meegat, the shipment provided critical supplies to aid recovery from Cyclone Ditwa. The Maldives was the first nation to mobilize support, with public service media launching a telethon under the banner of Silona Ekudivehing to coordinate contributions. Donations from ministries, companies and citizens raised $834,843.98 formally handed to the Sri Lankan government. Sri Lanka expressed gratitude while migrant workers in the Maldives held a public gathering to acknowledge the timely assistance. And now we'll take a short break for Isha prayers. Stay tuned.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح أكبر لا إله إلا الله. اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آت محمدا الوسيلة والفضيلة والدرجة الرفيعة وابعثه مقاما محمودا الذي وعدته وارزقنا شفاعته برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. وصلى الله على محمد وآله وصحبه وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين.
ಮಗುವರಸ್ಕೊರಾರು ಖಣ ಫರಾತಶ ವಾಯ್ ಫರಾತ ಬಲ್ಲವ ಕುರಿಮಗ ರಾವಾಯರು ವೀಕಂತತಕಶ ವ ಮುಂದಾಕಂತತಕ ವಿಸ್ನವ
Welcome back to PSM News in English, and now we'll continue with the news. The Minister of Health, Abdullah Nazim Ibrahim, issues a stark warning at a major public health conference, stating that the nation's entire health sector will face severe challenges if the medical needs of the foreign population are not immediately addressed.
His comments came during the inauguration of the two-day public health conference organized by the Health Protection Agency, HPA, in the Maldives National University, MNU. Highlighting a critical demographic shift, Minister Nazim revealed that 1 in 4 people currently residing in the Maldives is a foreign national. The statistic, he argued, makes their health inextricably linked to the nation's overall well-being. He emphasized the particular risk of imported diseases, noting that many foreigners come from neighboring countries where illnesses that are not present or have been eradicated in the Maldives may be prevalent. The minister called for a unified whole-of-government approach to this potential public health issue. He urgently appealed for participation of all institutions to facilitate access to comprehensive healthcare services for the foreign community, stating that collective action is essential for the success of these efforts. The conference itself is set to tackle these challenges head-on. A key focus will be on discussing the implementation hurdles of the National Policy on the Health of Foreigners, which was launched in June. Attendees, including associations and government institutions working in foreigners' affairs, will engage in scientific discussions on the obstacles foreigners face in accessing healthcare. The goal is to move beyond identifying problems and work collaboratively on strategic research-backed solutions to create a more resilient and inclusive health system for all. This is the second iteration of the conference, with the first having been held in 2019.
6,000 black Angus cattle stands in 3 rows of shaded pens under the hot Australian sun in Eugowra in the central west region of New South Wales state.
After an average of 90 days at the Godalming feedlot on a diet that includes rolled barley, silage, cottonseed and molasses, their weight will increase from 400 kilograms to as much as 600 kilograms. Their meat will feed rising global demand for grain-fed beef.
Our industry in Australia is not significant in the sense compared to America. This number we're feeding in Australia, 1.5, 1.6 million cattle, in one small area in Texas, that's the Australian feedlot industry in that area.
The feedlot plans to double its capacity to 12,000 head in the coming years, added Caitlin's father, Andrew Herbert. Gundamain is a part of structural change in the cattle industry in Australia, whose vast lands and small population have made it the second largest beef exporter, shipping meat worth $8.6 billion in the first 9 months of this year. The number of cattle on feed rose to a record 1.6 million cattle at the end of June, up from 1 million 5 years ago, industry data show. Analysts expect the number to be around 2 million by 2027, by which time around half of the cattle in Australia will be passing through feedlots on their way to slaughter. The growth coincides with the construction in the United States, the pioneer of feedlots and biggest producer of grain-fed beef, where years of drought have reduced cattle numbers to their lowest level since the 1950s. According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the United States on November 1st had 11.7 million cows on feed, 260,000 fewer than a year earlier and the lowest number in years, which expects U.S. beef production to decline this year and next year. Australia is taking market share from U.S. exporters in Asian nations that prize grain-fed beef for its marbling quality. Australian meat is seen as a close match for U.S. products. Australian grain-fed exports increased to 324,421 tonnes in the first 9 months of this year, from 224,230 tonnes in the same period of 2020, according to government data that only includes beef from cattle fed for 100 days or more, therefore excludes some exports. Most of this meat goes to Japan, South Korea and China. U.S. exports to these countries have declined in the recent years. Feedlots have not only been Australian producers' access to premium meat markets, but lessened the impact of the swings between rain and drought that are severe in Australia. Australia is, however, unlikely to become the United States, where more than 90% of cattle are fattened on feed.
The United Nations appeals for an aid budget only half the size of what it had hoped for this year, acknowledging a plunge in donor funding at a time when humanitarian needs have never been greater.
By its own admission, the $23 billion UN appeal will shut out tens of millions of people in urgent need of help as falling support has forced it to prioritize only the most desperate.
What do we need in order to save 87 million lives next year? We need protection for our work. We need that energetic peacemaking. And we need $23 billion. Of course, we need so much more. But this plan shows how we will spend that first $23 billion of what I'm sure we will raise on the most urgent, prioritized life-saving work. And I know budgets are tight right now. Families everywhere are under strain. But the world spent $2.7 trillion on defense last year, on guns and arms. And I'm asking for just over 1% of that.
A year ago, the UN saw some $47 billion for 2025, a figure that was later pared back as the scale of aid cuts by US President Donald Trump, as well as the other top Western donors like Germany, began to emerge. November figures showed it has received only $12 billion so far, the lowest in 10 years, covering just a quarter of needs. Next year's $23 billion plan identifies 87 million people deemed as priority cases whose lives are on the line. Yet it says around a quarter of a billion need urgent assistance and says it will aim to help 135 million of them at a cost of $33 billion if it has the means. The biggest single appeal of $4 billion is for the occupied Palestinian territories. Most of that is for Gaza, devastated by the 2-year Israel-Hamas conflict, which has left nearly all of its 2.3 million inhabitants homeless and dependent on aid. Second is Sudan, followed by Syria. Fletcher said humanitarian groups faced a bleak scenario of growing hunger, spreading disease and record violence. UN humanitarian agencies are overwhelmingly reliant on voluntary donations by Western donors, with the United States by far the top historical donor. UN data showed it continued to hold the number 1 spot in 2025 despite Trump's cuts, but that its share shrunk from over a third of the total 15.6% this year.
It was double delight for Egypt at the Hong Kong Squash Open at this platinum level event as both Mustafa Asal and Noor Al-Sherbani won titles.
In the men's final, world number 1 Asal defended his title by defeating compatriot Yusuf Ibrahim in 3 games, 11-6, 11-8 and 11-6. He becomes just the 5th male to successfully defend the title in this competition, overcoming 8-seed Ibrahim in the final. In the women's showpiece, American Olivia Weaver was denied by Al-Sherbini, who took the 45th title of her career in another 3-game match, 11-5, 11-5 and 11-7. In the first title of the 2025-2026 season for the current world champion, as she dominated the competition's 4th seed in the final. Next up, the PSA Squash Tour will head to Karachi next year for the gold-level Rich Venus Karachi Open 2026, which will take place between January 6 to 11.
Star power and historic glamour takes the stage at Sotheby's Luxury Week sales in New York City.
Leading items include jewels worn by Academy Award winner Jennifer Lawrence and a coat once owned by the Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis. Diamond earcloths by jaw that Lawrence wore on the red carpet at the Los Angeles Governor's Award last month are estimated at $300,000 to $500,000. Sotheby's vice chairman Frank Everett tells the collaboration with the actor came together naturally as they dressed her for several events this season. Lawrence wore a David Webb gold, enamel and diamond hot dog necklace for the premiere of her film Die My Love in New York City. That necklace is now offered with an estimate of $25,000 to $35,000. It appears alongside a host of other designer pieces, including a Suzanne Belperron rock crystal, pearl and diamond brooch, also worn by Lawrence, and a Belperron necklace made of topaz, morganite, aquamarine, and diamond. Sotheby's New York is staging 3 jewelry auctions this month.
We are thrilled to have had the opportunity to dress Jennifer Lawrence on a number of occasions this season. Sometimes it just works out when you have the right pieces in hand that appeal to someone and they have red carpet moments.
Beyond the jewels, Sotheby's is also offering a piece of American political and fashion history, Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis lavender wool coat that she wore on election night in 1960, estimated at $6,000 to $8,000. The maternity coat, worn when she was 8 months pregnant, was later passed to a family friend and shared among women in the family whenever someone was expecting. The coat is presented alongside fashion lots that include an Alexandra McQueen beaded evening gown and other designer garments. Online bidding for that sale, handbags and fashion concludes on December 15.
And that's all we have for this hour. Thank you for watching. Wish you all a very pleasant time ahead.
ಚಾದಿವೆ ರಾಜ ಅವಾರ್ಡ್ ವೋಟ್ ಕೊಲ್ಲುಮ PSME ಅಪ್ಲಿಕೇಶನ್ ಡೌನ್ಲೋಡ್ ಕೊಲ್ಲವ ಡೌನ್ಲೋಡ್ ಕೊಲ್ಲುಮ ಫಹು ಲೊಗಿನ್ ವೆಲಾಫ ಚಾದಿವೆ ರಾಜ ಪ್ರೋಗ್ರಾಮ ಫಿತ್ ಕಲವ ವೋಟ್ಲಂ ಬೇಣುವ ದಾಯರ ಹಿಯಾಡ್ ಕುರವ ಅದಿ ವೋಟ್ಲಂ ಬೇಣುವಾರ ಸೆಲೆಕ್ಟ್ ಕೊಲ್ಲುಮ ಫಹು ವೋಟ್ ದೆವ್ವ